In world news, prosecutors in the murder trial of South African sprinter Oscar Pistorius argue that the Olympic sprinter murdered his girlfriend in cold blood. During tough cross-examination on Wednesday, prosecutor Jerry Nell tried to get Pistorius to confess. Pistorius admits to killing Reva Steenkamp, but insists the killing was nothing more than a tragic accident. The judge adjourned the trial for the day following Pistorius' testimony. In South Africa, the judge decides the verdict of a trial instead of the jury. Ryan Rogers, Action News. Ukrainian officials claim they possess evidence of Russian forces operating in eastern Ukraine. Officials released photographs Monday which they say is proof that Russian soldiers are in the country. These pictures, first released by the New York Times, resemble those taken in Crimea, and these photos, if genuine, confirmed Western leaders claiming Russia's involvement. Moscow denies involvement in taking over government buildings in the eastern Ukraine, but NATO Commander General Philip Breedlove says this proves that the Russians are organizing a military operation in this country. However, U.S. Ambassador to the Ukraine Jeffrey Pyatt says there is progress despite the crisis and doesn't foresee a military solution. Vice President Joe Biden arrived in Kiev Monday to discuss the situation and offer a new aid package. This includes economic and energy aid along with government assistance. While some Ukrainians want Americans to help, others aren't warming up to the idea. Ryan Rogers, Action News. The United Nations condemns ethnic killings in a South Sudan oil town. The UN condemned ethnic killings at a mosque by rebels on Monday. Rebels killed hundreds of people last week after the fall of an oil town to opposition forces. The governing Sudan People's Liberation Movement, SPLM, and the army split in December. UN spokesman Joe Contreras says the SPLM's targeting and killing people based on ethnicity and nationality. The split involves supporters of President Salva Kiir and the Dinka people and Vice President Riek Machar, and Contreras says other ethnic groups are not safe in the Sudan. According to the UN, more than 200 people have died and over 400 people injured in the mosque. Approximately 22,000 people sought shelter at a UN compound in Bentiu. Mubarak and Musa says he and other refugees do not feel safe. And the officer in charge of the UN mission in Sudan, Rezadon Zaniga, calls for both sides to stop the fighting. Ryan Rogers, Action News. Russia pulls troops from the Ukrainian border. Could this lead to peace? Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on Wednesday that they're pulling troops back from the border. Putin says that Russia wants to give diplomacy a chance. He spoke with the president of Switzerland, who is acting as the chief mediator in the crisis. NATO officials say they saw no immediate sign that Russian forces pulled back, and in the Ukraine, people suspect Putin of trying to manipulate the situation. A referendum Sunday could determine if eastern Ukraine declares independence or joins Russia. Putin has vowed to protect ethnic Russians, but now it appears he may be going back on his word. Independent political analyst Konstantin von Eggert says that Putin could look weak if he doesn't intervene, but he also believes that Putin wants to avoid going to war. Ryan Rogers, Action News. A disputed referendum deepens the turmoil in eastern Ukraine, and people fear eventual civil war. Militants in Krasnoarmysk, a coal mining town, claim nearly 90% of voters support independence from Ukraine. Voters used paper ballots, and officials didn't allow independent authorities to observe, so there's no way to verify the claim. Local resident Maria Kolomoysk hopes for peace, but says they may have no choice but to seek help from Russia. Pro-Russian insurgents declared independence Monday for eastern Ukraine's Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Russian Foreign Ministry says the vote's results show the residents want to join Russia. Ukraine's President Alexander Turchinov says the real vote takes place on May 25th. Local school teacher Tatiana Anatoliev feels abandoned by her government and feels that no one is in charge and that they are all alone. More trouble could arise as the Ukrainian government seeks to remove militants from the buildings they're occupying, and more local residents fear that a Ukrainian civil war is inevitable. Ryan Rogers, Action News. Covering the nation now, police charge a former Ku Klux Klan leader with killing 3 people in the Kansas City suburbs on Passover Eve. Police arrested 73-year-old Fraser Glenn Cross on Sunday. He is charged with killing 3 people at 2 Jewish community centers in Overland Park, Kansas. The Institute for Research and Education on Human Rights president Leonard Zeskin says that Cross idolizes Adolf Hitler and says his worship for Hitler and Hitlerism is real. FBI agent Michael Cass says the shooting strikes at the core of fundamental freedoms. Rabbi David Glickman says the community in Overland Park is in shock. Ryan Rogers, Action News. In Boston, a man sits in jail for allegedly carrying a bomb at the site of the Boston Marathon. Boston police arrested 25-year-old Kevin Edson on the 1-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. Police officers found Edson carrying a backpack containing a rice cooker near the marathon's finish line. On Wednesday, a judge set Edson's bail at $100,000 and ordered him to undergo psychiatric evaluation. Assistant District Attorney Susan Terry said Edson told police he knew what he was doing. Edson's charges include disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, and disturbing a public assembly. He's also charged with possession or use of a hoax device and making a false bomb threat. Suffolk County District Attorney Daniel Connolly doesn't find the hoax amusing and says it's irresponsible, senseless, and selfish. Connolly compared it to someone yelling fire in a theater. In Boston, Ryan Rogers, Action News. Today, police in Queens charged a local high school teacher with having sex with another underage student. The suspect, 39-year-old Jan Morrissey, already faces another charge of statutory rape. Prosecutor Melissa Kelly says Morrissey's behavior is that of a predator. Morrissey pleaded not guilty to the new charges of criminal sexual acts and an act in a manner to injure a child. She already pled not guilty to previous charges of third-degree rape and criminal sexual act. Queens District Attorney Richard Brown is outraged, saying these are serious accusations which a school teacher who should be serving as a role model to students was instead using her position as a teacher to gain access for her own gratification. Morrissey, who earns just under $80,000 a year, is being held on a $25,000 bail. Ryan Rogers, Action News. Back to local news now. Ellensburg City Council hires John Akers as its new city manager. On Monday, the council voted unanimously to approve Akers' hire. Akers replaces Ted Barkley, who left for Montana back in February. Akers served as interim city manager following Barkley's departure. As city manager, he will make an annual salary of just over $130,000, and Ellensburg's Mayor Rick Elliott welcomed Akers to his permanent new position and joked that since he is now locked in as city manager, he will now have to get a tattoo. Akers' contract also calls for a $500 driving allowance, insurance for medical, dental, and vision. He'll also be reimbursed for training and professional association fees. In Ellensburg, Ryan Rogers, Action News. In Ellensburg, Kittitas County Commissioners today announced a landmark water deal on the county's water situation. Commissioner Paul Jewell announced a new water lease with the city of Roslyn. This water deal provides the county with a fresh water supply for the next 10 years. A hearing scheduled for May 29th will cast the final vote. Jewell says he's not concerned on whether this becomes a state model, as he's more concerned with local problems with local representatives and providing local solutions. Jewell credits fellow commissioners Gary Burnt, Obie O'Brien, and the staff for making this deal happen. Tom Tabb of the Washington State Department of Ecology praises their efforts, recognizing that this is not easy, taking hard work and a lot of commitment and time with the County Commissioner's Office. In Ellensburg, Ryan Rogers, Action News. One Ellensburg High School parent thinks students should be able to decorate their graduation caps. As of now, graduating students at Ellensburg High School are not allowed to decorate their caps, but resident Richard Villacrez and his daughter are petitioning for a change to this policy. Villacrez met with school administrators this week, but his request was denied. He believes that since students buy the caps and gowns, they should be able to decorate it however they want. Ellensburg High School principal Jeff Ellersick disagrees. He believes it should be a clean ceremony and wants everyone to look the same and doesn't want any unnecessary attention to be drawn to the students. Ellersick believes kids get the attention when they are called to the stage and they receive their diploma. In Ellensburg, Ryan Rogers, Action News. In Ellensburg, a pair of local teachers recently traveled abroad and returned with some interesting feedback. Local teacher Benaiah Ellison recently took a sabbatical and traveled to Zimbabwe to teach at a local school. Ellison talked about a 5-year-old boy who had cataract surgery when he was only 3 years old. Ellison explains how she purchased a vision test for the young boy, and it turned out the boy hadn't seen a doctor since his surgery. This is common in Zimbabwe because glasses cost over $250. Ellison contacted members of her church back home to raise money to buy glasses for all of the children at the school. School board member Dick Wadeen says that the Ellensburg Lions Club collects used eyeglasses for third world countries. He says there's a recycling center in Olympia that they ship the boxes to and take the frames and categorize the lenses. Fourth grade teacher Tara Affolter recently traveled to Minnesota for a seminar focusing on young students and their reading and writing. Affolter says that kids in grades 3 through 5 will be asked to focus on 3 forms of writing. They will write to inform, give an opinion, and write a narrative story. Students will also need to read sources before they write. Affolter believes teachers and students working together will create a better understanding of the process. In Ellensburg, Ryan Rogers, Action News.